You see, God does not love that who is a betrayer and sinful. So you see, we are sinful because it's somebody who's committing the wrong. And here we were told that the denier and sinful, those who deny and sinful. Here we're told the betrayer or backstabber and sinful. Khawanan in Arabic is anybody who betrays you behind your back. And sometimes not saying something kind behind a person's back, we don't think of it as betrayal. We just think, we're discussing someone. But we are violating the dignity of that person behind their back. Because would you want that to be discussed in that way? So there are also levels to it. So somebody could actually backstab somebody through actions, or even plan murder, the way we're seeing in today's world. People are backstabbing each other and leaders are assassinating each other. That's horrible. But it goes to other levels. So in our small communities, we have wonderful mothers, we have wonderful friends, we have wonderful fathers. Then we have to go to a different level, where sometimes we are doing it through our communication. We are betraying people and stabbing them in the back. But then there's another level. The more we start watching ourselves, sometimes I may not have said anything, but inside my heart, I formed an idea about John. How dare he? That was so stupid. That moment, I know in my heart, I'm not holding that person in a place of dignity. And God said to us, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, that we have dignified the children of Adam. And when we go back to the beginning of the session, we discussed the idea of principles that are immutable and unchangeable. And so just as I cannot change H2O making water, I cannot change the nature of dignity in humanity. That's something I don't have a choice with. So when I violate the dignity of someone else, I'm violating a principle, a sunnah of God. Because God said we have dignified. It doesn't mean we don't resist wrong, it doesn't mean, but the way we think of each other, the way we interact with each other, when I violate the dignity of another person, we know. Because I could do something or try to talk to somebody without violating their dignity. Imagine if we become sensitive to this issue of the dignity of another person.
But if he's an aggressor?
Why is that person aggressive? Because he's also believing something.
That he is better
than he's better, or he's wronged. So he has the choice to do that. But the way I react to him is also my choice. So somebody insulted me. That is their action. What I do with it, I'm accountable to what I do. Sometimes I like to use the analogy of saying that, you know how we're told in the Muslim tradition that in Akhirah we will be shown the movies of our lives, of how what we've done, what we've uttered, what we've this. And I said it will be almost like a movie where you're not seeing anybody else. Because generally we as human beings, he said that, he did that, she said that, and that's why I did this. I think in Akhirah, imagine when somebody comes and shows you a movie without the actions or without the words or without the context of what anybody else said. It's only what you've been saying and doing. The camera is only recording your actions and your words. Imagine the entire movie is like this. So sometimes you see this person saying, and then you're not seeing what has happened, because the person says, that person insulted me or hit me, and that's why he said that. But the way we are basically told in the Quran is that you are only accountable for your actions. You're not accountable for the other person. So if somebody is doing something, and of course our conditioning is that somebody hits, I hit back. Somebody insulted, I insult back. So it comes from a place of reaction rather than a place of action and consciousness. And things don't arise from just suddenly like that. Generally, when there's somebody aggressive or this, okay, maybe somebody is swearing you at the road. That's something different from somebody you know and there's a very volatile connection. It generally takes two to tango. Sometimes you're not aware of how we created the dynamics. But generally in the Quran, it says that everything in the universe is friendly. Everything is supposed to help you grow and learn. So even when we are with difficult people, that could be a blessing because we are learning, they are educating us.
No, but unconditional aggression. Like if somebody is killing my son, well, I'm going to kill him or do something, so they will show only me doing something to him, but it won't show that she's killing my son.
That's your response. How, like, if it was from a good niyyah and the way you're doing it, I'm sure, God is not unjust. The point is,
around. What I want to say is that
not always, by the way, not always allowed.
Like
According to Quran.
the 3 RCMP officers who were killed, okay? That happened recently. And when the pastor or the priest did the services in the church, he told everybody, he said, forgive the aggressor, because if you don't, you're going to live with something that's going to hurt you personally. Meaning the revenge, the anger, the rage, and that will hurt you more than if you say, I'm forgiving the aggressor.
The Quran tells us when you punish, it says punish with that you were punished with, or forgive. We're also told that فَجَزَاءُ سَيِّئَةٍ سَيِّئَةٌ مِثْلُهَا. It actually uses the word bad for a crime and also the word bad for revenge, for killing, for actually capital punishment. This is why a Sufi like Ibn Arabi actually said the Quran is directing us to end capital punishment, because the Quran itself is saying that killing the killer, it says if somebody committed a bad, you kill, it describes the killing, punishing of that person as a bad deed.
So how do you justify all the stoning and killing of the women that goes on?
There's no stoning in the Quran.
No, I know that, but the thing is that why do they attribute that to Islam all the time?
Well, because we also have social conditions, and then people want to use legitimacy to practice to maintain their social structures.
And
don't forget, like, a lot of our tradition was written during patriarchal times. So it was not written by
the way, it's still patriarchal today.
Very much.
Could also, because I think in Hadith there is stoning that happened, right? During the Prophet's time. And is it possible that the Prophet was living among Jewish tribes, and stoning is prescribed in the Bible, and this was part of Jewish law?
All the punitive laws,
some of those Jewish laws in our practices.
Not just only that, the whole region. I mean, they were punitive laws from the time of Hammurabi, and when the idea of law and punishment were created. But that's a different topic.
Of the time. It's nothing to do with Islam.
There is an evolution of also our ways. So there's an evolution of our ways of solving problems, and this is why last time we talked about how the Quran presents things as being a journey of humanity. You remember we discussed that verse where the angels say, why create someone who will spread corruption and spill blood? And God said, I know that which you know not. And our punitive measures is part of that. Their ways attempts rectifying things. But if we find better ways of solving our problems, we are bound to them because it becomes part of taqwa. The more we always create. But the idea of punishment is not the topic of today. So let's continue. Like, if we have time, we can discuss this. That's a major theme in the Quran.
I think because next year the punishment, because we are living in the Western societies and they ask us about these punishments.
Yeah.
The one they have in Saudi Arabia and things like that, cutting of the hands and beheading the person, all these things, and they ask us, oh, it's so cruel, it's so cruel, it's so cruel.
I mean, even when you look at the Quranic text, it's not easily interpreted as cutting of the hands, because cutting of the hands, because the Quran has a highly metaphoric, it uses a highly metaphoric language, and then when it discusses, because cutting of the hand could mean cutting because in Arabic it means suspending also, suspending. Because the words suspend and cut in Arabic are the same. So it could be stop the hand of the stealer. It could literally mean that. It could also mean something else. However, I mean, every everybody reads the text and the text reads them. I read the text and I don't see that it allows the cutting of hands, because it always discusses issues of justice, and then it stresses mercy and restorative justice. It says be just or better than just. And so to cause harm to another human being, the Quran I read does not allow that. In fact, we said that God does not love those who transgress. So if the punishment is severe, we're transgressing also the bounds of justice. So if somebody stole something, is the best way to really deal with that is cutting the hand of that person and maiming them forever and marking them for life.
But you know that beheading still goes on after every job. It's different. It's not part of the Quran.
But just quickly, you mentioned something which says the Quran is trying to get away from capital punishment. But in this sense, doesn't it say that first you pay blood money?
Yes,
to prevent the capital punishment. That's the first option.
Not only that, but the Prophet, like one time when during his time when a person brought the person who killed his brother, and he took him because he wanted to kill him. The Prophet said, if he kills him, he will be like the criminal. Then somebody ran after the man and they said, the Prophet said that. He came back, he said, you allowed me. He said, wouldn't you want to be forgiven all your sins? Mm-hmm. And so the idea is that justice was established or practiced according to the best means of the time. But we are always compelled in the Quran to do taqwa. Taqwa, and the Quran tells us, إِنَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ يَهْدِي لِلَّتِي هِيَ أَقْوَمُ, that the Quran leads, always constantly leading to that which is better. So it's kind of a dynamic approach. We are bound to better solutions. And when the angels accused this species, God said, there's potential in this species, that they can evolve, because they saw something as static. And we tend to want to be stuck in that way of doing things, whereas God's answer implies a lot of evolution and potential in humanity and their ways of dealing with challenges. Let's move to the things that also, again, God doesn't love. So because God doesn't love also those who are backstabbers, and this is connected to it. It also says, this is a fascinating verse, I find, and it's not always mentioned and discussed as it should be. God does not love airing wrongs publicly or to be mentioned openly, except for that who has been oppressed or wronged. God is all-hearing and all-knowing. It's almost this verse is telling us.
Which one? Is it 57?
Say the number of the
It's 148, Surah An-Nisa. 148.
Okay.
Surah 4. Yeah. It's almost God is saying that, I am all-hearing, I am all-knowing. Talk to me, don't air it. Unless there is something really, really like that has to be aired publicly, like somebody has been wronged legally, and it has to be discussed. So we are actually encouraged not to air our grievances in public, because it creates a lot, it maligns reputations, it creates a lot of misunderstandings, and sometimes they could be extremely small things that could be rectified, and yet it creates bigger problems because they accumulate. Somebody says something and then the other person. So this is a way of kind of nipping things in the bud.
But if there is a consequence of some lesson for the public to learn from that, whatever they want to do.
That's why it made an exception, except for those who have been oppressed. So if somebody really openly has been humiliated or wronged, then it has to be discussed. But generally we are encouraged not to air, and then God is saying all-hearing, all-knowing. And so generally if I have a difference with Amira, wouldn't it be easier to discuss it with her, or to decide in my heart it's not a big deal, I'm sure she didn't mean it that way, and let it go, instead of coming to you and say, Amira did this. And then Amira hears it again, and Amira says, I can't believe she did that. And no. You know how it goes? It's a simple thing in our lives.
It's a rumor.
So we have to be very careful. Like this is a verse.
It's very interesting.
And that's why tabloid magazine stuff. So here we are basically encouraged to really be careful what we utter publicly and openly. Because sometimes, even a child, like, I'm complaining about my child. It's negativity. It spreads, maybe the child, I'm just saying, oh, my child is not eating well these days. It's that kind of, or, oh, I'm so tired and depressed. Maybe I'm not backstabbing somebody else, but that kind of negativity. So because here it says, لا يحب الله الجهر من السوء بالقول إلا من ظلم. الجهر بالسوء, it could be anything. Oh, I'm tired, I can't believe this. So it could be general complaining.
But if I'm tired and I'm depressed, what should I do then?
Go to psychologist.
It says God is all hearing, God is all knowing. So you could talk to somebody who could actually help, but just we are not encouraged to spread negativity and to say bad things, like to really.
We are so boring if we don't gossip off. We don't talk.
I don't like gossip.
No, just
exactly.
People who gossip are very interesting. You find them interesting.
Stop it now. And we're talking about the things that God loves and God doesn't love. So we want to be in that intimate connection. We have to hold people in dignity. We have to hold ourselves in dignity, because somebody who's constantly complaining is also, they're not dignifying themselves. And so this is the reason I'm discussing these things before Ramadan, is that to unhold these pieces of paper and go back and check these verses. And some of them are actually repeated. It is to be in a certain state of being, thinking and acting.
To guard our tongues.
And so it's thoughts, it's words, it's actions, and actions become realities around us. And then we say, oh God, life is so unfair, and I always say, we worked so hard to produce certain results, and then when the results start happening, we say, God is so unfair. But we have, this universe works perfectly. So if somebody is actually depressed, it's like they're very successful at their depression, because they have been thinking such thoughts. Eventually they manifested that depression, so if generally when I see somebody very depressed, my tendency is like, wow, how did you achieve that? Very successful. If I see, now when I see my country is being destroyed, Syria, it took a lot of not doing anything actually, like sometimes it's even like I always say failure and destruction requires so much energy and so much thinking and so much planning and so much effort over a sustained period of time in order to yield these results. So if the Syrians, for example, weren't doing anything and were gentle with each other, the country would have flourished. But it took so many wrong ideas and so many wrong beliefs and so many misaligned behaviors and so much corruption and so many lies and so much energy and effort.
Negative energy.
And then some people say, how can God allow this? Well, we've been working very hard on it.
So we have upset the laws of the universe.
Exactly. So the Quran is actually showing us that it is a perfect universe. You want to be depressed, you can achieve it. You want to be destroyed, you can achieve it. So there is severe punishment, we are told, and there is intense bliss and joy. It's your choice, God tells us at the end. You can achieve this, and you can achieve this. The point is, God will not force you to go either direction. You choose every single moment you're making a choice. Every single moment you're creating reality.
It's